Is Kyrie Irving really leaving the Nets? Short answer is I don't think so. So if that's all you came for, just like and subscribe. I'd appreciate it. If you want an explanation as to what's actually happening in the Charania report and why I think Kyrie is going to stay put in Brooklyn for at least one more year, let's talk about it. Shams has reported that Kyrie and the Nets are at an impasse on their contract negotiations. So the first thing to realize with Shams reporting is that he's usually talking to agents. So if there's an impasse, it's usually because the agent is not getting something that he wants from a team. So we can assume that what has happened is the Nets are not offering enough money to make Kyrie sign a long-term deal as his running mate Kevin Durant did last summer. As you recall, Kevin Durant signed an extension for the absolute full maximum. I'm sure Kyrie Irving also wants that considering how much freaking money it is, but he's unlikely to get it for his availability issues, for the distractions or whatever. This year was obviously not fun for the Brooklyn Nets. I don't think they're really ready to shell out that type of money for Kyrie Irving. That being said, they obviously want to keep him. And Kyrie, if he was being frank, would also tell you that he wants to be in Brooklyn. Why? Because he has his buddy Kevin Durant there, and he's scheduled to make about $37 million with the Nets next year on his player option. So simply by picking up the player option, he makes almost $37 million. He will not be able to recoup that money as an open market free agent because no team can get enough salary cap space to sign him for that amount of money. So if he wants to make at least $37 million next year, he has to play for the Brooklyn Nets or negotiate a sign and trade. For the Nets, I just don't really see a sign and trade that makes sense. Shams mentioned 3 teams, the Knicks, the Lakers, and the Clippers, that would be willing to engage in sign and trade talks and make room for Kyrie Irving on their team. But none of those teams have the sort of assets that I think the Nets would be looking for, or those teams may not be ready to give up the assets that the Nets would be looking for. The Clippers obviously have a stable of players that could be useful in the playoffs and are young enough so that the Nets can convince themselves that a team built around these young players and Kevin Durant and Ben Simmons and Seth Curry can really make a run in the playoffs. But none of those players are really like star young players. And then when you look at the Lakers, they certainly don't have anything that the Nets would want. I don't think Kevin Durant is that excited to play with Russell Westbrook again, and also that would be a very bad trade from a basketball perspective. And the Knicks similarly don't have anything that would keep the Nets in championship contention this year, and I think that would be the goal with Kevin Durant. Obviously, picks would be great, but none of these teams would have great picks if you're trading Kyrie Irving to them. So really, I just don't see a trade that would make sense for the Nets right now. And they want to keep Kyrie Irving around for at least one more year to see if they can make a run at the finals with these guys finally healthy. So I don't see a sign and trade happening. I don't see Kyrie hitting the open market. I think he's going to pick up that player option and be back in Brooklyn for at least one more season because it's just too much money for him to give up, and there's frankly no reason for the Nets to engage in sign and trade talks when they want to keep the player. Now, that being said, if this situation continues and Kyrie actually wants out of Brooklyn, maybe this is a chance for Brooklyn to hit the full reset button and start rebuilding maybe around Ben Simmons or maybe around some other young players that you can get for Kyrie Irving or even Kevin Durant. But that's down the road. And like I said, I don't think we're going to get to that point. So my best guess here is that the Brooklyn Nets are going to be pretty much the same team that they were at the end of last year.